I guess we're counting down.
Yeah.
Game day.
Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of Chiefs Focus First and 10. You're here with JP and Nick, the Chiefs Insider. What's up, bro?
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Just, listening to all the chatter and chitter and chatter as we do.
Dang, it's been a long day. Texas started 7 a.m. this morning.
Yeah.
So
all day. I was sitting in line at my daughter's school, and people next to me were listening to conversations in the car, wanting to know what we're trading for, what are we doing, why did we do this, So I don't know. It's interesting, to say the least, but it seems as if we're going to be making a couple of moves, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I mean, they restructured Travis's contract today, so that gave him some extra coin, and I'm assuming Patrick is an option at some point. Maybe even Chris Jones gets an extension. The way he's been playing this year, probably deserves one. I mean, his cap hits 29 million next year, so there's no way they're going to keep that number.
No,
it's not possible.
No.
To do that. They're going to have some cap space next year, but they have some pretty big decisions to make. But they just have to decide this year what they want to do. They want to go all in. They're not trading their first round pick or their second round pick with the draft being in Kansas City. So that just everybody just get rid of that right now.
Yeah, let's just end that conversation.
Adios. Clark Hunt will never sign off on that.
No.
Even if it was for the best player in the NFL, I just don't think they want to do that to the fan base. So maybe a 2024 first round pick is an option, but I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I think listen, they're in on probably a half a dozen guys at this point. They just have to decide if they're going to go all in for 22, sacrifice a little bit for next year, or they just take their lumps for the young kids. But they've got some problems, and they can fix them. Unfortunately, the schedule is going to be in their favor after this weekend. It's pretty downhill from here, so they'll have plenty of time. But a few tweaks can't hurt.
No, not at all. I mean, I think like we've seen a lot of people complain about the defensive line and the rush defense. I mean, we let some guys gash us, and then we put some halt on some guys that should have gashed us even more. So it's I think we've talked about this in the past, but positioning is everything. And if you don't have the right guy in at any particular time, you're going to have that issue.
Yep. Well, I mean,
help.
Yeah, he can't do it by himself. Neither can Patrick, for that matter.
No.
But the bottom line of defense is they're just not filling the gaps, and the defensive tackles are getting blown out. I mean, why Shelton is not on the active roster is beyond me. Hopefully he plays this week, because Danny's just a big load. He can actually take two double teams and actually push it back. I think there were some injury issues, but I think he's clear of that now. Because then the linebackers are kind of lose their leverage too, because the safeties in the corners, fill gaps, and the linebackers fill gaps, and right now they're just not filling the gaps the way they need to, because it's 5 yards into the defense before anybody touches them, because the defensive line at times, hasn't played well. When the linebackers play up, they can fill those gaps, but then it's play action, and they got to worry about a whole bunch of other stuff because, Nick Bolton has been crucified by some bozo on Twitter that he's not good or no good or isn't any good anymore. And it's just like, come on, the guy's asked to cover wide receivers. I mean, he was covering wide receivers. He was covering Diggs.
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't ask the guy to do any more than he's currently doing. He's a Derek Johnson clone.
He really is.
And at the end of the day, I mean, he's a really good football player. And with Willie Gay coming back, those two are going to be pretty dynamite. So, listen, the Chiefs defense, I think, is going to be okay. I think they're going to be good enough. I think if they rematch the Bills, it's going to be a different outcome. But, they have to get Danny Shelton in this lineup, and they have to get him in the middle of that defense.
I agree. I mean, the guy basically took up 2 roster spots. He's so damn big. He should. I mean, honestly, I don't know why they didn't. I don't know why they haven't brought him up. I know originally what I was told, and I think you might have heard the same thing, that he was injured.
Right.
They didn't want to put him on IR because they figured that was a 4-game deal, and they didn't think
Right.
it was going to go past, a couple of games. But now here we are going into week 7, and he's still sitting on the practice squad.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Coaches have their favorites, and we all know how nepotism works on an NFL roster.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's just a matter of what do they want to accomplish. Now they have their bye week coming up, so I'm assuming some changes are going to be made. They're going to tweak some things during those 2 weeks. Before I think they're at home against the Titans, if I'm not mistaken, on a Sunday night. So they'll have a little bit extra time, but they're all relatively fixable issues that they can deal with as long as they stay healthy and they get all their guys back. And Fenton decides to play like he did a year ago, and the rookies in the corners play better. They got a baptism by fire, and that's only going to help them down the road because they're not going to face a better pair of receivers than that moving forward until they get into the postseason. At least based on the injuries and some of the things we've seen with their upcoming opponents.
I agree. And, really when you think about it, all these people are crucifying our corners, but we have 3 rookies out in the secondary that have went up against the 3 top wide receivers in the league, and they've held their own. I mean, you can't really expect these guys to come out and go up against a Diggs, an Adams, a Mike Evans, and be perfect.
Right.
But they've held their own. I think Jalen Watson's a star in the making.
Yep.
He's done a really good job for somebody. One, he's a smaller corner in a lot of ways, but he's also he's just done things that most corners that are veterans haven't been able to do thus far against those wide receivers. Look, we held the Bills to 24 points. No matter how you look at it, we held them to 24 points.
Right.
They didn't get the deep balls like they got in every other game this season.
Right.
I mean, look at what they did. They 98, 70-yard bombs. They haven't been able to do that. They weren't able to do that with the Chiefs.
No,
they weren't. So you can't complain too much.
No, you can't. I mean, we're all, we all have, we turn into different animals when we're watching the game and we're being, couch coaches, and we look at stuff and we have the advent of replay, but we're not out there, with bullets flying and bodies clashing, and you can look at it and second guess it all you want to, but when I forced myself to watch pieces of that game again, because I got to think about now watching the Chiefs games when they lose, or watching NFL games the rest of the week. I just can't do it. But
yeah.
I did, and I watched these kids, and there was some technique things they could fix. There was definitely some help they could have got with pressure. The safety play was average at best in a couple of the big plays. But, on the final drive, I think Reed had, he had great coverage on Knox. I mean, he could have just as easily swatted that ball away. It was perfectly thrown. It was a great play.
Yeah.
But they didn't get any pressure on Allen, and he had enough time for the crossing route. But I think if you look at some of the, even on Davis's touchdown, you look at the, they had trips to the left and they had Davis on the right, and all 3 of those guys were covered. And had Thornhill been over helping the rookie on Diggs, maybe it's a different situation. But we can nitpick all you want to, but they're going to be okay. I think they're going to again make some changes. Spags is smart. I agreed with him being aggressive even with the young kids out there, because that's just the way you have to play to beat the Bills. And they, the Chiefs made 6 mistakes. If they make 4 mistakes, they probably win that football game.
Exactly. And here, we've talked about this on other shows, but I think you and I have talked about this on the phone, but this is the fastest start to any Spags defense in his career. They've never started off as well this quickly. It's usually 7-8 weeks. Then you start to see them, come into their own. And those are guys that have played together prior. We've got, we've got what, 3 veterans, 3 guys that have been on the team longer than 2 years that are actually starting right now. So you can't expect much more than what we've got at this point. We're 6 games in. We're still the cream in the AFC, no matter how you look at it. I mean, until somebody else can really dethrone Mahomes and this team, nobody else is as good as us. That's just how it is. And that's not being a homer. That's just being facts.
Well, I think with Spags, I think with Spags, I mean, you're right. I mean, if you look at the Super Bowl 54 team, I mean, it was game 9, before they kind of just started to really put it together, and then they were lights out in the postseason. I mean, they carried that team to the Super Bowl.
Right.
You know, and they made enough plays and were aggressive. And Frank Clark had a monster postseason. Tyrann Mathieu, you know, was probably the best part of his career in Kansas City was that Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
But they put it together. But I'm shocked. Not only did Spags agree to play the young kids, but they're playing, you know, they're exceeding expectations.
Yes.
And the fact that he's saying, okay, you know, they may not be able to do this, they may not be able to cover, they may not be able to press at the line of scrimmage, they may not be able to do some of these things that you know, some of the vet guys and some of the injured guys can do. But he said, you know what, they're going to have to learn how to do it eventually, so why not do it in a game? And, you know, the first, 7 games of the NFL season for the Chiefs, they're playing 7 playoff teams, or except for the Chargers, 6 playoff teams.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a tall task.
It really
and
is.
If they come out of this 5-2, even if they're 4-3, you know, like I said, the sledding for the rest of the schedule's a pretty even slope for them, and they should be favored in every game going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I guess there's only a couple metrics out there for, you know, strength of schedule, but they had us ranked top 2, top 3 in the hardest schedule in the league.
Yeah.
So to have a bunch of rookies there and first year guys, I'm not complaining. And, you know, something that is, I guess, is kind of frustrating. We can't expect a bunch of wide receivers that have never really played with Mahomes. It's a twofold, because you've got Reed's Playbook, which is a Stephen King novel, and then you have Mahomes, which is a very unconventional quarterback that you have to learn his movements and what he's thinking just by his little gestures and his eye movements. And it's a lot to learn. And you and I both have spent a lot of time on the field to see what these guys go through day in and day out, rookies and veterans and everybody else, you know. So I love to hear all the complaints. In the end of the day, it's all for nothing. These guys get all frustrated and irritated. And I still think we're going to end up in the AFC Championship game. We may end up winning the AFC. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love it if they actually got on the road and won it. But as far as the receivers go, I think the thing to remember is, you know, Patrick started working with a lot of these guys in March. Yeah. Obviously, Sky Moore came in via the draft. I mean, he's working with Watson and Juju and MVS. And, you know, so he had these guys, you know, working in Texas and was able to kind of, you know, see their the way they do things and get them up to speed. And I think that's helped. I think they'd probably be less – the distance right now would be less than it is if they hadn't had the offseason they had together. Yeah. And, you know, I think right now, you know, Juju, I think, is figuring it out. You know, I think he understands it. Sky Moore is their best route runner, but he just doesn't know all the offensive pieces yet.
Correct.
You know, like in that ill-fated pass, you know, the first quarter, Sky was too close to MVS. If he'd have just moved to his right, you know, he was wide open. He would have been wide open. And MVS, I'm sorry, you're that tall. You should catch that football.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
You know, there's no doubt. Whatever damage comes after the play, doesn't matter. You catch that ball.
Exactly.
You know, just one of those things. But
that was almost like a business decision. I mean, it was like,
it seemed like a business decision. Well, I mean, listen, the corner made a great play too. He went up and got it and took it away from him, and he just didn't close his hands. But those things happen. But those are the kind of mistakes that they're not going to be able to make going forward. And again, they'll learn from it. You know, MVS had a great game against the Raiders, not a really good game against the Bills, but you know, they still have Travis. You know, Pacheco's got to learn, you know, how to run and catch the ball. You know, he had a great opportunity there, and he just thought his speed was going to take over. And these are all things that they're going to learn. So I think the receivers will be okay. Now, if they add Beckham, you know, which appears to be a rumor, you know, how accurate it is remains to be seen. I've had people tell me it's going to happen. I've had other people tell me no way it's going to happen. So at the end of the day, until Brett Veach pulls the trigger, I don't see it. Though, you know, Odell had a pretty interesting tweet today when someone mentioned you'd be catching passes from Mahomes. And, you know, it was pretty funny, his response. So check it out. But, you know, if they add a guy like that, then now's the time to do it. You've got the bye week. You got a couple of weeks. He's very intelligent. He's not a locker room cancer like everybody's talking about.
No, he's
a
not.
good dude. He changed the culture of the Rams in a very short period of time and helped them win a Super Bowl, even though he got injured in the big game. But my understanding is that he'll be ready to play early part of November.
Yeah.
He's already running. He's doing all the running drills he needs to do. If they do it, I would imagine it'd probably be a 2-year deal. I don't think he'll just sign for 1 year and be a rental player.
He's not. In fact, what I heard was he definitely wanted a 2-year deal, or he wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
And
I don't think he's going to go to the Bills, only because I think they have a really solid chemistry with their receivers and their backs. It doesn't make sense. The Rams, they're going to try, but I don't know why he'd want to go there, because I don't even think they're going to make the playoffs.
No,
but he's not going to the Packers, because that doesn't make any sense. So, a team like the Ravens, they just got Deshaun Jackson. They just signed him. He's 36 years old, so I don't think he's going to go there. And I don't think he wants to play for that quarterback who's that's for another show.
Yeah, that's for a different show.
Yeah. But Jackson's not everything that we think he is. I mean, I've never been a fan, but that's beside the point. But for the Chiefs,
I never had
I think the thing that's hurting this team is Andy and Eric and Nagy. They're putting too much pressure on Mahomes to make plays. They have to do things a little bit differently. Yeah. They have to create some better opportunities. And, that's going to come with just taking a look at the offense overall, taking a look at the defense. I mean, they made no adjustments for the spy, technique that they used, in that game against the Bills. Yeah. That killed them, because they were rushing 3 guys and they still had trouble giving him a clean pocket. So, again, most of these things are fixable to a degree, but it's going to take some reevaluating and maybe putting in some players in different positions and trying some things differently.
I agree. I think, and I mean, I've been fairly open and blunt about the Eric Bieniemy situation, and there's just too many irons in the fire. In my opinion, there's too many voices. There's too much animosity. Mm-hmm. I mean, in my opinion, he needs to be gone. He should have already been gone.
Right.
It should have happened last year, or at the start of this year, I should say. And I think we already know that it's caused conflicts this year. I mean, it mm-hmm. worked out well in the preseason. I mean, he went to manager camp to learn how to manage people.
I don't even know what that is.
Apparently, it's
right.
I really don't know what it is either. I'd never heard of it prior to this, but he went and he was good through training camp, preseason, week 1, week 2. I noticed it right off the bat, and then week 3 it hit, and it was like, okay, he's back.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I mean, the end of last year, with the way how everything unfolded, the loss of the game, and then all the off-season chaos and the lawsuits, and the fact that Eric Still was getting shut out. I mean, I don't know how many interviews he's had, 16, 17, 18, whatever 23. It is. Some teams 23. So some teams twice. I really thought he'd end up as the Saints head coach. And I think for the Chiefs, listen, Eric's been there a long time. He has an ego. Andy has an ego. Nagy comes in, who I think is going to be the heir apparent offensive coordinator next year, and also the heir apparent to Andy Reid whenever he steps down. Yeah. I think they have to handle things differently, and the responsibilities have to be a little different. But now Patrick's, he didn't have the swagger in the Bills game that he had in the Bucks game.
No.
He didn't really have that swagger in the Raiders game too, except in the second half he kind of had that. So whatever that game plan was, or whatever the agreement was, or whatever the understanding was, or what the responsibilities were, they need to go back to that week for this week and every week hereafter and say, okay, we're just going to repeat that entire process for the Bucks week.
Yeah.
Because if they have that focus and they have that understanding and they have that mindset, I mean, they weren't going to lose that game from the opening snap.
No.
There was no question.
No.
Once that fumble hit, they were done. It was over. The Bucks were finished. Had the Chiefs scored a touchdown on the first drive against the Bills, I think they would have probably gained some of that swagger back. And they probably would have. They definitely would have won that game, I think. Yeah. But they have to. Whatever the situation with Eric, whether it's working or it's not working, they got to make it work because he's there. He's not going anywhere. I mean, he's technically, from what I'm told, already interviewed for the head coaching job in Nebraska. He will probably interview for the head coaching job at the University of Colorado during the bye week, would be my guess. If he takes a college job or if he's interested, he turned down 4-year, $4 million, contract with the Buffs a couple of years ago. He'd have $16-20 million in his pocket.
Yeah.
And
he wanted to stay with $1 million a year with the Chiefs. So
yeah, and he's making less, with Kansas City. So listen, I mean, I don't think Eric's a terrible coach. I don't think he's a terrible guy. But you just got a lot of egos, and he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he shows it and he displays it sometimes, and they get heated. But again, it all goes back to that Bucks week. Whatever it was, just keep doing that.
Yeah.
And it'll all work out, between now and hopefully in, the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree. Well, some interesting things come up today in the annual NFL meeting. Something you and I have been hearing for, a long time now. Looks like they're pretty much going to force Daniel Snyder out of the league. Takes 24 votes, and
right.
There's definitely 24 owners that want him out.
I love the fact that Jim Ezra, of all the guys, is the one who's
out
leading
of everybody.
the charge.
I mean,
out of all of them, with all the crap that he's gone through and all the stuff that he's done, and 2 weeks ago he was going to blow out his GM and his head coach, and they win 2 games in a row. So, and I have no credit to him at all whatsoever. It just kind of worked its way. They played the right teams at the right time, and it was an all good fit. But I find it interesting that he was the guy out there with the mouthpiece with the 30 reporters hanging around him, and I think he needs to go. I mean, listen, the franchise is a mess. The Browns are a mess. They're not getting a new stadium with the current ownership. They're a mess. The Browns are a mess. The Jaguars are coming out of it, which is good. For them. And the Raiders are still a mess. I think the Chargers are a mess. You've got all these franchises that you look at and you say, that used to be Kansas City. That used to be us. We're not a mess anymore. And, I hope we never take that for granted again.
Exactly.
Because,
a lot of people have. I mean, that's the strange part.
No,
if you listen to, most of them are young fans that really didn't live through the
they haven't gone through the pain. They haven't gone through the pain you and I went through. That's for sure.
No,
but I think Snyder's. Listen. Don't feel sorry for him. He'll sell the team for at least $7 billion, which is almost $2 billion more than the Broncos got. Yeah. And he's going to get very rich, more rich.
And he's already very rich. So
he doesn't need any more money.
He
just
came
needs
from
a better PR person.
Yeah, for sure. He came from I'm still getting text about this stuff. He came from a very rich family, and it wasn't like you got a lot of guys in the NFL that are, they're self-made. A lot of guys are self-made. Then you have guys like him that came from old money, generational money, and decided they just wanted to buy a team.
It all spends the same.
It does. I just don't understand. I'll tell this guy really quick. Sorry. Okay. Same question over and over again. Every single text I get.
Yep.
I actually almost turned my phone off today. I was at a point where I was like, okay.
I mean, I've got six messages right here.
Yeah. I'm just done. I mean, it's like I
Who
can't.
Are we? We're just a
and not
couple of
only
dudes.
that, we're just a couple of guys that, we get information here and there, but damn, I mean, we're not going to get, it's like when we do get stuff, and there's no doubt, everybody knows it, but there's certain things we're not going to get. We're not going to get.
And there's certain things we're not going to ever say.
Exactly. That's the biggest key. And that's what I've tried to explain to people over and over again is that, look, man, we built relationships over a 30 plus year period, and that's definitely not going to get broken like the media.
It's not worth it.
It's not.
It's such a social media world right now, and with Adam Schefter has made a career, and God love the man. The guy works his tail off.
Yeah.
And he's got the contacts and the 2 phones and the personal driver, and he's got all these things.
Yeah,
And it's good. Yeah, exactly. Probably, that's true. He does have a new armored car.
Yeah.
But I think I that's the key. Listen, we could tell stories that we'll talk amongst ourselves, but we would never make public, or we would hear things. No. And what I think people forget about rumors is that, rumors start as hypotheticals, then they go to conversations, and they go to what if scenarios, and then they go to, well, maybe if we are that interested, would you do this? And we do that. And 95% of those times in those conversations, nothing happens. No. But it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. Exactly. It's just, you just want to see the end of the game. But for me, the fun is all the stuff leading up to it. Exactly. So when I put out a tweet, or you put out a tweet about something, it's like, hey, this is a rumbling, this is something we're hearing. It's still part of the overall process of it all. It is. And people don't enjoy that. I mean, no, it's like, it's like watching an NFL game. You want to get to the fourth quarter, or you're watching an NBA game, which is just, you get to the fourth quarter in the last 6 minutes, then all of a sudden officials start calling plays, players, superstars start playing. Yeah. The game is determined in the last 6 minutes. Yeah. But, for us, who've been old dogs that have been doing this a long time, it's just enjoy the process, enjoy the fun. We're talking football 365 days a year. We have access to every video, conversations. We have access to people, relationships, friends. Yeah. I mean, I got former players and current players. I mean, I would never, you just don't cross that, but it doesn't mean that you can't, that these things don't happen. And it's naive to think that they don't, because they do. Exactly. And the NFL locker room is the most incredible thing I've ever witnessed as a reporter back in the day. It's just, you had this group or that group, you had this group, coaches come in and they'd move these guys around, and then they'd mix all these guys together. And I just keep going back to the movie North Dallas 40. Yeah. The greatest football movie of all time. And you know what? It's a business. It's an entertainment. It's all the things combined. Yeah. But, these guys do their best. And sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. But the whole point of all this is enjoy it. Enjoy the process leading up to the week. Enjoy the rumors. Enjoy the conversations. We get to talk about the thing that's our biggest passion. Exactly. Which is sports, because the rest of the stuff, it's just nuts. I don't even want to talk about all the other stuff in the world. This is our escape mechanism. It really is. I mean, people ask me all the time, how do you do this 24 hours a day? And it's because I don't want to deal with everything else that's going on in this crazy ass world. We've been through enough. We have. And I agree with you. I mean, I had never, I loved playing ball, and there was a different feeling in a dugout versus a locker room. Mm-hmm. A lot slower. A dugout, you can see everything. In a locker room, you don't. Exactly. And you always have your different experiences with different players. Right. As you know, Derek Thomas and I were really close, and I got to spend a lot of time with him and Marty and everybody else for 10 years. And it was so different after I left baseball, because, watching Bo Jackson that wouldn't talk to anyone at all 4 hours before he wouldn't even come near you. And if you did, he was so damn laser focused. Mm-hmm. The day that I met him, and I was told, don't talk to him right now. And I said, man, that's Bo Jackson. And they said, well, yeah, I am. Just stay the hell away from him. Right. I said, okay. So I looked over at him. I didn't say anything to him. I just looked at him. He gave me a look like, I swear to God, if his eyes were AK-47s. And I thought, so I just walked away. And it just happened to be a game that he had a couple of strikeouts. And he, his famous break the bat over the thigh thing. And yeah. I said, how's it? I can't remember. Somebody said, you only get 10 bats. And he looked at him, and he grabbed one off the rack, and he snapped it over his head. And he walked down the tunnel, and I went, yeah, I will never talk to that man before game. I would never say anything like that to him.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I mean, it's just
high to the man. I mean, before
yeah.
game. But then you look at Derek and all those guys from those days. Everybody was so damn mellow. They were so
Mhm.
easy to well, for the most part. There was a couple of them that
Well,
were
yeah, they
really.
did their stupid stuff off the field, but they were still good people.
They were very
You
good
know,
people,
they
and
made
you
up
knew
for it.
Derek as well as I did. And I mean, good God, did he make? Everybody made mistakes. When you come from an upbringing like he did,
Sure.
and you get handed that kind of money, look, you're going to enjoy it. It's that simple.
Yeah.
But he
Yeah.
learned from his mistakes, and that's what people don't understand about him is he would make them and he would learn from them and he'd move forward. But he
Yep.
was such a good-hearted person. But the
He was.
damn the locker room was so different compared to baseball.
Oh my God, that was just like, when I first when Herm came in and he he changed the locker room completely.
Yeah.
You had the offense and the defense and the special teams were all in their own sections,
Yeah.
and he just mixed it all up.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really good.
It was.
I mean, the quarterbacks were together obviously, and you had Tony Gonzalez with two lockers,
The
which I
guy
thought
was
was always
something else,
hilarious.
man.
I love Tony. Tony's the best.
He was
And
something else.
so again, all those things, and that's how you build your relationships, and that's how you get to know these guys.
Exactly.
Then you run into them in the street, or you run into at a party, or you're out having food or something. I mean, it's just an enjoyable. It was so much fun, and today, everybody's kind of so guarded, and it's
Yeah.
not quite the same because it's all gone social media, and
And it's such a you're right, and it's such a damn cesspool of people just looking for a reason to sue one of these guys. So it's harder
yeah,
to get closer to a player now versus back then.
yeah, it's
Um,
almost impossible. I mean, growing up for me, I had Hank Stram and Bobby Bell on one side of my neighbor, or they
yeah,
were my neighbors, and Bobby had a pool, and we'd just, knock on his door, we'd go swim, and he'd be out of town, and we'd clean up, and he'd show up, and we would talk for hours. I mean, it's
yeah,
just, Hank, the same thing. We just, we're going to the Stram house. I didn't think it was
yeah,
any different than going to the Joneses house. It was,
exactly. I
to
mean,
me as a kid, it was completely different, and now you're right, they're so guarded, and that's how information is right now. It's very guarded. I mean, Andy's a different communicator with the media and with the way he does things versus the way Marty did things, or Herm did things, or Dick Vermeil did things.
yeah,
It's a different era. I mean, you could sit down in a conversation with Dick in the hallway at Arrowhead and be talking for an hour.
yeah.
You could
He
do the
never
same
stopped
thing with.
talking.
No, he was great. He yelled at
He
me
was.
once.
I
That was
loved
only
him.
one time. But
Yeah,
you just don't. It's so different now, and so for guys like us, and for fans that don't know really what we've experienced and kind of how it works behind the scenes, it's what someone puts in 127 characters, and so it's kind of one of the reasons why we joined forces was that we would be able
yeah,
to just say, we can cut through some of the noise. Both of us are 1 to 2 degrees of separation from being able to find, plausible, not plausible, possible, not possible.
exactly.
But we're never going to break stuff. I'm just not interested in doing that anymore. It's let the other guys have their day, and we can sit, let's talk about it, and say, hey, we kind of told you so. This is the
Yeah,
direction they were going. But I think that everything we've experienced in the Andy Reid era is, thank God we're not the Texans. Thank
yeah,
God we're not the Browns. Thank God we're not the
yeah,
Panthers.
yeah,
The Jets and the Giants seem simultaneously at the same time to have turned their franchise around, which I think is great for the NFL.
yeah,
And it's hard to be consistent, and it's hard to do what the Chiefs have done. What 6 straight AFC West titles? The way Andy came in, full blaze and changed the culture immediately, and they were 9-0 to start the season, and his first year, and what he's done is quite remarkable, and he's had to deal with some stuff off the field, and he's had to, he's still a human being, he's still a person, and this is his franchise right now, and he'll do what he has to do to get another Super Bowl, because I think that's something he really, really wants. He's going in the Hall of Fame. But again, guys, Chiefs fans, relax, take a breath. It's all good, man. It's just
it's
week
funny
6.
you say that about calling out players. The last player I called out that I knew was 100% lock was Shea. And I called it out, I think on a Friday. maybe Thursday. And I put out on Twitter, I said, Shady's going to sign by Monday, maybe Sunday night. I would expect Sunday night. Man, I got lambasted. I mean, every stroke on Twitter was nailing me.
Yeah.
And then he signed Sunday night. They announced it Sunday night, I should say. And after that, everybody kind of left me alone. But I mean, at that point, it was like, you know what? It's just not worth it because most of the guys that are going after you are people that, one, don't even live in the city. Like I've had guys because of Joe Montana, or I became a fan because of this. You know, we were born fans. So there's a lot of difference, you know, in that, you know, and then you have your guys that are very young that don't even remember the 2-14 season.
Yeah.
So
they don't even know who Lynn Dawson is.
They don't know who Lynn Dawson is. You know, I mean, if you brought up half the players from anywhere from 1968 to 1980, they wouldn't know who they were. I mean, probably through the 80s too. You know, I mean, I was there and I know you were.
Well, there's every reason to forget everything in the 80s.
Oh God.
So
I mean, the one thing I remember the most was that stupid, ignorant mistake we made by grabbing Todd Blackledge over everybody else.
Dan Marino. Dan
God.
Marino thought he was going to be a Chief.
Yep.
He was convinced he was going to be a Chief. He never in their wildest dreams, that's what he thought. And when that happened, I mean, that was John Makovic. He fell in love with that one touchdown pass in the Sugar Bowl by Blackledge where he threw it 60 yards on a dime. Yeah. And he said, I can build that quarterback. And, you know, I mean, Eason and Elway. And well, obviously I didn't have a chance to get Elway. You know, I mean, that draft.
Well, I think we had a chance to get Kelly, though, at that time, right?
They had a chance to get Kelly, too. But the rumor was he was always going to go to the USFL, so that was going to be a tough. And that's probably something that the Hunt family didn't want to deal with. Yeah. But Marino should have been their quarterback. And the fact he was drafted by the Royals, a year earlier, should have been their precursor to say, you know, dummies who just take this guy. But
exactly.
You know, again, that's a different era. I mean, again, we'll have to do a show. Let's do a show next week, and let's go back and talk about some of the we'll take our best 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s shot and enlighten some people about some of the stuff that happened. I think that might be kind of fun.
It'd definitely be fun for sure. You know, let's get into this running back situation because it's something I rewatched that Bills game, I think 3 times now. Slowed it down, sped it up. I've done everything I can do to try to figure out what the mindset was behind pulling Pacheco and putting CEH in when he couldn't get more than a yard and a half. Most of it was, you know, line of scrimmage. You know, I think he was at 3.4 because he had one decent run. But
he ended up at 2.2, I think.
Yeah.
For the game.
By the end of the game. But when you have something that's working, I think I've always said this, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but how many runs do you see as an offensive coordinator that actually work out? And sometimes I feel like that. And I don't. Look, I get it. They made their mistake. They drafted a running back in the first round. He hasn't worked out. He's been injured 3 times. He's not producing. He runs in slow motion sometimes. He doesn't see the holes. I learned one thing about him, and I don't know if you noticed this or not, but if a play is called, no matter who calls the play, and it says run up the middle, no matter if that hole closes or not, he runs up the middle. He will run into a brick wall instead of roll out. I don't know if he has the speed to do that, though.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you notice the running plays they were doing where they were just pinching the guard into the center and the tackle was pushing out to create a big hole.
Yeah.
And he was still not. I mean, if that was Jamal Charles, he would have scored about 6 touchdowns.
Exactly.
Because there was like 5 or 6 opportunities. He just doesn't have the speed. He's not an every down back. Even at LSU, he wasn't an quote unquote every down back. He was their main guy in third down. And he had a great senior year, and everybody fell in love with him. And all the fantasy people, said as a rookie, get him in the top 10. But the problem is he just doesn't quite have the vision, and so they had to overcompensate, and he just didn't have the speed. He got there okay. He went to the right spot, but so many times, he just doesn't cut back, and he tries to use his power. And in short yardage situation, I think he's good. But they've got a dilemma. Pacheco's the gut future. Rojo, for whatever reason's in somebody's doghouse, and he needs to come out of it as far as I'm concerned. McKinnon's a third down back, and you just can't keep rotating three guys. Someone has to get a rhythm. They got to get somebody into the flow. Pacheco, to me, is the guy that can make the short play, the long play. He's good with his hands. He runs hard.
Yeah.
But they're missing that with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They're missing that burst of excitement, or teams don't fear him, and they have to overcompensate in the way they shift the blocking to create the holes. And when there is a hole, he doesn't cut back. And that's just not his game. That's not his style. That's nothing. Nothing in film in college is going to show you. If there's a hole, he goes through it. If he's outside, he'll get you 10 or 12 yards. He'll make plays, but they're not even designing plays for him that can be more effective to what talents he has. He's not a game-breaking, gonna give you 20 carries and 150-yard kind of back, as the Chiefs have faced defensively over the last few weeks. So again, I think that's something they fix in the bye week. I think their offensive line is better suited for run, or to run the ball at times versus the passing, because they don't really create the pocket for Patrick. So I think that at the end of the day, that's something that they'll work on. But I do expect Jones, if he's not traded, I do expect in bye week that he'll come in and he maybe takes on the McKinnon role of last year. And I think CEH's touches are going to be reduced. Pacheco's are going to be increased, because this team's not going to go far in the postseason unless they run the ball better. And the good news is they've got 11 games. If my math is right, they've got 11 games left to solve that problem, and that's enough time.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I have heard a few times that Pacheco is probably going to be what they, quote unquote, running back one coming out of the bye week, and let's see if that actually happens.
We'll see what happens.
Andy is so loyal to a fault sometimes.
Yep.
We found that out with our old DC. But I think it seems to me that he has these bursts in certain times that he just seems like he's running hard. And other times he just falls flat, and it's like he's running in slow motion. He hits somebody, he falls down. He doesn't have that motor that Pacheco has.
Mm-hmm.
And even McKinnon has a stronger motor in most instances. It's very strange to me to see that. I have heard Rojo was on the trading block for a while.
I hope they don't do that. I think it'd be a big mistake.
Yeah, I've heard it a couple times now, and I don't know. He hasn't seen a snap, so I don't know what they're doing. Andy's very methodical, though, and he likes to play a vanilla offense. He likes to do a lot of different things in the beginning of the season to see how far they can get, and then he saves his best for last. We know he does that, but I don't know if Rojo's his best. It's hard to say.
Well, it's only one way to find out. You're going to have some games after the bye week, even against San Francisco. They're decimated. They got so many injuries. Just look what the Falcons did to them last weekend. Yeah. So they can run the ball on the 49ers, and I think it'd be a good test for him. Again, I think Rojo and Shelton should be active this week. That means they have to make a couple of roster spots. I think if they make a trade this week, whoever that is not going to be on the be playing this weekend. It's just not going to happen. So I think that you got to solve that problem, and it ain't going to happen Sunday against the 49ers. It's going to happen in the bye week when they come back, and the depth chart changes a little bit. See what trades they make, see what they do with Rojo, and they're going to have to they have to change also. I think when Nagy came over, they really wanted to focus more on running the football, have more balance from Patrick. But you've got this Rolls Royce, and you just want to let Patrick do his thing. And I think we've seen in the two losses that they weren't running the ball enough or well enough. And in all the wins, they were running the football. So, I'm not brilliant by any stretch of the imagination, football mind, but if you run the ball effectively, chances are you're probably going to win a football game. Yeah. And then you have all those other weapons. So I think they're trying to give Patrick too much. And I think Patrick's trying too hard at times to make the great spectacular play. And if they just ran the ball more, then you can't have a spy linebacker, and they have to treat it more honestly, and they're going to have to bring guys to the line of scrimmage, force them to play out of their game plan. And again, Andy's smart enough, and Nagy's smart enough, and Eric's smart enough. They should be able to figure that out.
Yeah. There's changes. Definitely. I mean, look, they're all gelling.
Yep.
Who would have thought? And I don't really know another team out there that can take a complete group of wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you got two guys in that core that have been on the team longer than a year or longer than the season. That's right. Harmon and Kelsey. It's pretty difficult to take a group of wide receivers and make them as good as they've been,
right?
Even with rookies that you've had in there, and expect them to. We've been very lucky, and a lot of that is attributed to Patrick because he just makes everybody better. God, when a guy like him can make somebody on the defense better, he's a damn good quarterback. Because we've seen how offenses now. Of course, things have changed, but back in the day, offenses, defenses didn't even talk to each other. They killed each other on the practice field. So,
back to it. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah,
of course, you're going to have your issues here and there, but I think they've already. You're going into. You're right. We got a lot of games left. I guess really the only thing that Bills game maybe at some point affect the seeding, but
I'm not too worried about that.
I'm not either. You know what? Their division is no joke. Look at it. The Jets are not a joke, and they got to play They haven't played them yet, so it's there's a lot of football left. So
I think the Chiefs are better. I think the Chiefs play better, exclude the Colts game on the road than they do at home.
I have said that.
It's less pressure.
Oh my God!
It's less pressure. If they wipe the floor with the 49ers this weekend, no one's going to remember the Bills game. Here they're back. They're going in their bye week. They're 5-2. They're still going to be leading the division because the Chargers have a bye week as well. So they're going to be neck and neck with them. The Chargers should be 3-3 anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I think that pressure comes off. I got no problem if they have to go into Buffalo in the divisional round or the championship game and go up there and play football. They'll give Buffalo all they want. And if it's Buffalo winning in Kansas City, like Kansas City won in Buffalo a couple of years ago, then fine with me. It doesn't matter. You're not going to beat a team twice. You're not going to beat a team of that caliber twice.
No.
But again, they've got a lot of work to do between now and then.
They do. But it's funny you say that because I have been telling people this for I don't know how long now. I have said for the last 3 years that the Chiefs play better on the road. And everybody says, what do you mean? They have a winning record at home. It's not about the record.
Right.
They really do with the record. It's the fact that they play so much more efficient and more dominant on the road. I don't know if it's the fact that they just want to beat people in their own home. I don't know what it is. Maybe they're too comfortable at home. But
I think it's the pressure. I think it's again, the expectations are to win and I'm guilty too. I thought this year, well, if they had kept Hill, I would have said this year I think they could have had a chance to be a run the table until the schedule came out. At some point, this team's going to put together a Patriots year where they're, they go undefeated. It's going to happen. There's no question in my mind. It may be a couple of years from now or a year from now that they're going to be in a position to be able to do that. And these are all the growing pains. Listen, they've turned this roster over on offense and defense. They made the brilliant trade with Hill, which was an incredibly smart, gutsy move by Beach. And they turned it into all these draft picks and all these players. And, the fact that they're even at 4-2 at this stage, our expectations are they should win every football game. But, despite playing, terrible in the Colts game and mostly, 50-50 in the Bills game, the Raiders game, I think there was some luck involved there, and the NFL gods said, "Hey, you're going to win this game."
Yeah, they helped us out.
They took care of business against the Chargers, and they took care of business against the Bucks and Arizona, and they did what they had to do. Yeah. And I think it's what you have to look at, and give this team a little time, and they're going to be fine. But going on the road, they have, a pretty good fan base there wherever they travel. You've got, they just seem to be more focused. They're, they get on an airplane, they're away from all their distractions. They go to a hotel, they do a walkthrough, they get up and play the game on Sunday. And, they're more focused, I think.
They are.
Versus the distractions that they have to all deal with, because they're human beings and they're individuals and they have families, and, those things take time. I mean, think about the load that Patrick Mahomes has to deal with. He's got an entire Chiefs nation. He's got decades, from day one, franchise day one, Dallas Texans, era up until when he won the Super Bowl IV. From Super Bowl IV on, he's carrying all that, and he's done an incredible, remarkable job. Which
at such a young age. I mean,
I don't know anybody, having a good mother and father and having a good family and having a great guy like Lee Steinberg, who, Lee protected him and did everything he could the first year, and worked really hard with him and his family, and he's got his guys, and taking care of him. And Patrick has taken on all this responsibility, and I think when he gets on the road, it's just a little different. I think he plays a little different.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because he's probably just a little more relaxed and a little more just, you don't have the family pressures, you don't have the just the, I guess you would have, because you're always pressured more at home, and I don't know, they just do very well on the road, and you're not going to be, again, like you said, you're not going to beat the Chiefs twice. So
beat San Francisco this weekend, go into the bye week, spend a little time with your family, heal your bodies, and let the coaches do their thing, and go see a couple college football games, relax, and get away from it, and come back and get ready for the Titans for Sunday Night Football at Arrowhead.
That's it. That's all you can do.
That's it.
Really quick, Tom Brady, just off Chiefs real quick. Tom Brady made a few comments on his on a podcast about his situation. Did you happen to hear any of that?
All I heard was something about, going through an NFL season is kind of like, being in the military or something like that. Some reference, it's like going to, it's going overseas. He doesn't have the time to spend with the family. It was a
little more than that.
I didn't pay enough attention to it. I got to be honest.
Yeah, he kind of really showed what kind of a person he is. He basically said, if playing football, it's for me, basically, it's all about football. I can't have a family in football.
Right.
So basically,
that
what
makes
he's
no
telling
sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, what he's telling his wife is, I understand that you put your career on hold for me, and you moved everywhere I needed to move, but I can't do that for you, and I can't do it for the kids. And that's basically what he said.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
it's very, very selfish.
Yeah, I guess it's the interpretation. I mean, listen, we've been around enough players, and we know what they have to sacrifice. I mean, I think if the average person who has never played sports could see the things that we saw,
that's true.
That what these guys have to go through to prepare.
Yeah.
I mean, Willie Roaf. Loved Willie.
Great guy.
Willie took. We timed him. Jason Dunn and I and a couple of other players would time him from the time he got out in the locker room, how long it took him from a walk from the training room to his locker. He was like 5, 10, 6, 7 minutes.
Yeah.
You get him on the football field on Sunday, and he like somehow buried the pain, and he was a deer. I mean, he just mauled people, and the toll that these players have had on their bodies and the things that they go through, and then you have the family stuff, and then you have the emotional stuff, and you have the ups and downs. And I mean, it's just like, it's not like baseball. It's not like soccer.
It's not
like hockey or NBA.
No.
The NFL is completely different. It is like 1 A+ and everything else is a 3 or a 4 underneath it.
Yeah.
And not to judge the athletes who play in the other sports, but for Tom to say something like that, it could be interpreted as, he's being a selfish, SOB. But if you're a top flight athlete with 7 Super Bowl rings you know what it takes during the regular season to win why you play the game. And so, I can see both sides of what he said. But again, this is his last year. He's got that huge contract with Fox coming up. Whatever his personal life is, I personally don't think people should be talking about it. And, Page Six is doing their stuff. They've got kids. That's what's important. How they raise those kids and how they deal with it. And I don't think his comments were just strictly about, he didn't have time for them. It was just more difficult for him to do. And we see that all the time.
We do. I think it was just the way he worded it.
Yeah.
Basically saying,
well, he also came off a bitter loss. He lost to the Steelers, who got thumped by the Bills. They're not playing well. They probably won't. They may not make the playoffs. And he's having kind of that Joe Montana year that Joe had in the last year in Kansas City. So, again, he is what he is. He's still the GOAT.
He is.
He is.
There's no doubt.
He will be the GOAT.
As much as I hate it, he is
NFL. Yeah, he will be and go down as the greatest NFL player of all time. No one's going to get 7 Super Bowls. Not going to happen.
No, it's not. I mean, as much as we'd love to see Patrick do it, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And I love Patrick to death.
I do too. But real quick, Willie, got to end this one.
All right.
I knew Willie really well, and I was in Ward Parkway one day, and I popped out of the bank. Willie was walking down the street, and I'm looking at something. I don't know if it was a deposit slip or what I had in my hand, and he has kids.
That would have hurt.
Yeah, it would have hurt. Concrete too. I was gonna rant. I mean, I was 220, but still, that's still not enough for Willie. And he goes, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I said, "What are you doing here?" He goes, "Oh, we just ate at that. I think it was called Angelina's or something. It was an Italian restaurant up there." And him and I talked about this on the show, but he had a cane. I said, "What the hell is that?" And he goes, "All right." I said, "Willie, seriously, man, what's up with the cane?" He goes, "My knees are a little sore. I'll be okay." And he's walking so slow. I mean, he's walking like a 90-year-old man.
Yep.
And that was on a Wednesday. And Sunday was actually the best game he'd ever played in his career. That Sunday.
Yeah. Is that the Jets game?
Yeah. And I said, "Willie," I said, "How the fuck do you do this? How? How's this even possible?"
Right.
He goes, "You ever heard of Toradol?" And he brought it up on my show, and I said, "Well, yeah."
Right.
He goes, "This shit works wonders." And I went,
"Oh God,
Willie." And he goes, "Here's the truth." And the guy's had 9 knee surgeries now, and it's amazing able to go from a cane.
Yep.
At 34, 35, whatever, 35 years old at the time, I guess it was, to playing the best game he had in his 13-year career.
Yeah.
That Sunday.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that on the show the last time he was on. And I said, "Willie, I don't think you understand the impact that you had on me, just given the fact that you were able to do that." Because I know what I feel like after all the broken bones I've had and backs and all this shit, and you go out there and you play all the time. How do you do this?
Right.
And he said, "I love this game." He said, "I loved it." He said, "And I'll do whatever it took." He said, "I'm paying for it on the show," because Willie and I are exactly 3 months apart in age. And he said, "I'm paying for it now." And I said, "Yeah, I know." And he said, "I paid for it ever since I retired."
Yeah.
And he always will. But he said, "Would I change anything?" No.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. That's probably, that's the mentality you have to have if you want to play this game, because I wouldn't let my kids play. I got 4 boys. There's no way I'd let them play football.
No.
Not going to happen. Not with what I've seen. I mean.
Yeah. No. I mean, when you walk into a room and you see a guy, that big needle going into somebody's knee or an elbow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good. I just.
Yeah, all you have to do is look at Jim Otto's knees.
Yeah.
The former center of the Raiders, and that's when I realized. And I saw what Bobby Bell went through, and some other players, and you know, the wear and tear on these bodies, and even today with the advanced equipment and the advanced helmets, and and they don't feel as much. Trust me, they feel.
They do.
They feel it.
I mean,
so
it's crazy to think. I mean, even Angie, when I talk to Angie, she says all the time, I don't know how he did it. You know, his wife, for anybody that doesn't know, his wife is Angie, and she says, I just don't know how he did it. He just did. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that took a lot of punishment. Keep going,
he was amazing. He
really
was.
Was.
He was something. He was something else.
I'll never forget his time in Kansas City. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That was a great offensive line.
God darn. And I actually thought this one had an opportunity to maybe get close.
No, not going to happen.
No.
Just interior-wise, yes. Outside, that's a work in progress.
Correct. Have to see how it goes.
All right.
Well, man, it was a pleasure.
Sounds good. Hey,
Nick, I think you're going to come on, once a week now or something?
Yeah, we'll do it once a week. Absolutely.
Once a week.
Yep.
For everybody out there, check it out. Follow Nick on, check out Primetime Sports Talk. Just ChiefsFocus.com, and we'll get you all the information you need. Thank you.
Sounds good, bud.
Peace out, guys.
RJB, out.